Worlds has been an absolute banger so far. From extreme methodical outplays to the usual conspiracy theories. It's been a glorious ride so far and can only wish that the final brings us even more excitement. But this year, for us the Aurora community, we also got to watch our favorite champion get played in the highest possible competitive matches. And, to no one's surprise, she's been doing great in terms of presence. But there's something interesting happening in the build department. Absolutely everyone who's ever picked her has built Liandry's Torment. Now, honestly, I was expecting a burst build here and there, but I'm not surprised that there's none, since if I was in their shoes, in most games I would probably be doing the same. But wait, aren't I the guy who always vouches that burst is almost always better than the Battle Mage variant? Am I perhaps a hypocrite? No, wait, before you click away, I would like to explain myself. Every decision that you make in the game is always going to be dependent on the context and variables. That's why we'll use exactly those to answer the two questions on everybody's mind. Is Liandry actually the best Aurora item? And is the Battle Mage archetype superior? And the answer to both of these questions is very simple. No, there are far better items than Liandry for Aurora in most cases, and for the Battle Mage archetype, while it's good in some niche situations, it's far less practical than what Worlds has shown us. But to understand why, we're going to have to go into a deeper explanation. Before we do that, welcome everyone to a new video. If you're new to the channel, we primarily cover Aurora here, with a sprinkle of overall educational content and some other champions here and there. One more thing I want to mention here is that everything is my opinion. The information that you're provided today is from a high-elo veteran Aurora player, not from a pro player, meaning that I'll be doing my best to make an educated guess and cover all points of interest and why potentially if I was in their shoes, I would be looking to build Liandry more often. So, with all of that out of the way, the very first point we need to talk about is Aurora's strong sides in a competitive environment. The way I generally explain to people what Aurora's champion design is that she is an assassin with control mage aspects. Having control mage aspects makes sense. They're very appealing because they're useful in a competitive game, since they give control, and who doesn't want that in an organized environment? But the real key why Aurora provides value at the highest level is hidden in the word assassin. If you split the quality of an assassin, you get high burst damage, but you also get a ton of mobility. And the thing is, Aurora's mobility is very flexible. Not only can she assassinate people using it, she can also do all of these. And I'm not even gonna bother mentioning how creative you can get using the ult bounces. But this is where it becomes interesting. Pro players love to prioritize combining the mobility aspect with the control mage aspect. The damage portion from the assassin archetype becomes an afterthought, and that's why the flexibility of Aurora's mobility that I mentioned earlier becomes very valuable. But in order to get the most out of it, you need some form of durability as soon as possible. And what better item than an item that provides decent damage, but at the same time the most durable stat in the game, aka health. However, this mindset of how to play the game is for the most part a complete contrast from the mindset you should have in a solo queue environment. The reason is very simple. No matter if you're playing a game in bronze, gold, or diamond, or in a highly structured competitive environment such as Worlds, you still need to deal enough damage to actually win a game. But when you're playing in said structured competitive game, you have people that you can actually rely on to add the missing puzzle to whatever your champion or build is missing. But in solo queue, the only consistent factor in each one of your games is you, and only you can guarantee that the game gets carried. Meaning that your number one priority in each one of your games, especially as a champion like Aurora, is to make sure that you have enough damage. But just to summarize this whole point, pro players love the flexibility and balance Aurora can bring to a team, so they use Liandry to get the most out of it. And these things are not bad in solo queue, but to ensure that you have more authority in your own games, damage is still the most valuable stat. The next point on why Liandry is so prevalent in pro play matches is the item itself. We already assessed that it provides good stats as an item, but it also has two passives that just scream pro play. The first one is the one from Haunting Guys. It rewards long extended fights, and in competitive, most fights last a long time since everyone is aware of ideas, for instance how to slow play, when to disengage and enter the fight later on, and just in general is very skillful when it comes to team fighting. This passive is great in this environment. The second one is the more interesting one and the one that people know Liandry best for. It applies a burn that deals more damage the higher the HP of the opponent, so it ends up being very valuable against HP stackers, and I'm sure most people already know that. But did you know that there's something invisible that gives you max health every game on every champion? I'm of course referring to levels. When you're in a competitive game, odds of that game going late and everyone, including the ADC, having a lot of max HP is very high. This is obviously due to the fact that high-level matches last on average longer, due to the teams willingly wanting to wait out certain power spikes, play around objectives and game plans, and also not having any issues executing difficult and coordinated macro decisions. So by investing into the Liandry stock, you're likely to cash out value. Alright, makes sense for competitive games, but what about solo queue? If you look at this image, you can notice that the higher the elo goes, the lower the average game duration becomes. And it makes sense, since in solo queue your goal is to end the game as soon as possible to remove as many complications as possible. But wait, if you look at the lower divisions, the average game duration is pretty high. Does that mean that you just need to embrace it and just build Liandry if you're in any of these divisions? This is actually a question that I cover in my coaching sessions quite often, and the answer is absolutely no. In solo queue, it doesn't really matter what elo you're playing in. Your goal is always to end the game as soon as possible. The shorter the game, the less variables and situations you need to deal with, so less problems you need to solve. Even if you're playing a scaling champion like KO or ARISU, your opponents are making mistakes from minute 1. You need to capitalize on them whenever possible, so you end up accelerating your lead and ending it again as soon as possible. I know that last part is a bit of a sidetrack, but I just wanted to clarify it. And the last point that I think that gives us the whole picture on why Liandry has appeared in every game so far is pro play's consistency and taking the safe route. Every pro player is skillful enough to play around anywhere between 10 to 30 champions at a very high level at a given time frame. But of course, each one of these champions has their own mechanics, builds, identities, game plans, and anything else that goes into their complexity. So really, it's all about keeping it simple. By getting good at playing only their most optimal playstyles that they see, experience, and practice, they're limiting the things that could go wrong and ensure that they're setting themselves for the best odds of success. Now, that doesn't mean that I fully agree with every time Liandry has been built so far. For instance, in this game, I personally don't think it makes a lot of sense, and neither does it in this game. But I absolutely understand why they went for it, because it's the most consistent route they've been experiencing so far, so in theory, it shouldn't make that big of a difference, especially in the environment that they're playing in. Another thing that I want to add to the consistency point is that in general, assassins tend to perform way worse in an organized environment at the highest level of play. The odds of you seeing an ADC and just getting an opportunity to one-shot them here is highly unlikely. Whereas obviously in solo queue, that happens very often. So embracing Aurora's assassin side needs to only be done in games where you will be inevitably getting value from it, instead of it being the standard when we're talking about structured competitive games. And that's it. Those were the most important points I needed to bring up in this discussion. There are other smaller ones that I could also talk about, but I don't want to make this video unneededly long. So what does all of this mean for you and me? Well, unless we're playing at the peak of the competitive League of Legends scene, we shouldn't really be defaulting to Liandry every single game. Going the more damage-oriented build will always be the more consistent route when it comes to solo queue, since he who has the damage controls who dies in the game. I'm sure somebody has said that. That doesn't mean that building a Liandry here and there doesn't exist, of course. It comes down to just buying the best in slot item in your current predicament. Make sure that you ask yourself questions and problem solve which one that is. If you need more information on each item, I have a Google Doc down in the description explaining my thought process on which item I go for in every single one of my games for Aurora. Thank you so much for watching the video. I haven't done one of these more edited ones in a while. Let me know in the comments if you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.